Today I am going to teach you how to minimize blood transfusion. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 15 gram per deciliter, if you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 15 gram per deciliter, do you need to give blood to that patient? Answer is no. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 9 gram per deciliter, 9 gram per deciliter, here no. If you found a patient with 9 gram per deciliter, do you need to give blood to that patient? Sometimes answer is yes, sometimes answer is no. Answer may be yes or answer may be no. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 5 gram per deciliter, very low value, 5 gram per deciliter, do you need to give blood to that patient? Answer is definitely yes. You have to give blood to in patient with hemoglobin level of 5 gram per deciliter. If you found a patient with 15 gram per deciliter, you are happy, no need to give blood. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 9 gram per deciliter, again you are happy, you can transfuse blood freely. But if you found a patient with 9 gram per deciliter, how are you going to decide whether to transfuse blood to this patient or whether to start other method in order to improve the hemoglobin concentration of this patient? You have to judge that. Before coming to that judgment, anyone tell what is the definition of anemia? If you found a less amount of hemoglobin in your blood, they are going to call it as anemia. According to WHO or World Health Organization, the hemoglobin level less than 12 gram per deciliter in female and hemoglobin level less than 13 gram per deciliter in male patient, they are going to label as having anemia. If you found a hemoglobin level of 12 gram per deciliter less than that is one in female patient, or when coming to male patient, hemoglobin level of 13 gram per deciliter, we are going to call as anemia. Less than this value, we are going to call as anemia. Is that mean to the all the female and male population? Again, answer is no. When coming to pediatric population, threshold value is much more higher. It is not 12, sometimes maybe somewhere around 15. When coming to adult population, in male patient, hemoglobin level less than 13 gram per deciliter, they are going to call as anemia. When coming to female population, hemoglobin level less than 12 gram per deciliter, they are going to call as anemia. I have a question. In patient with marginal hemoglobin, not the marginal, threshold hemoglobin, whether to transfuse blood or not, threshold hemoglobin patient, how are you going to decide whether to transfuse blood or not? I am going to do an experiment. Would you like to participate in that experiment? Yes. I am going to insert a probe into my subcutaneous tissue and muscle area, which can measure the partial pressure of oxygen. I am going to insert a probe into my muscle which can measure the partial pressure of oxygen. Then it continuously monitors the partial pressure of oxygen. If you check my tissue level partial pressure of oxygen, it must be somewhere around how much? Tissue level partial pressure of oxygen, how much? Somewhere around 1.5 kilopascal. That means how much of millimeter mercury? It must be multiplied in 7.6 in order to convert it to millimeter mercury. It is roughly about 10 millimeter mercury. If I check my partial pressure of oxygen, the tissue level right now, it must be somewhere around 10 until it become 1 millimeter mercury. My tissue anaerobic respiration not going to start. My tissue not going to produce lactic acid. That means right now my tissue oxygen level must be somewhere here to here, because right now I am not going to produce lactate. I have enough amount of oxygen. So tissue partial pressure of oxygen may be 10, maybe 1. Most of the time somewhere in between, somewhere between the 1 and 10. It must be 5 or 8, 5 millimeter mercury or 8. Now I am going to do an experiment. I insert a probe. I found a value of 5 millimeter mercury. I found a value of 5 millimeter mercury. My tissue level, partial pressure of oxygen. Tissue level, partial pressure of oxygen. Then what I am going to do is, I gradually reduce blood from my body. I am going to do a venous section from this end and gradually remove the blood. While removing the blood, simultaneously I am going to give saline to maintain the volemia. To maintain the volume status, I am going to do acute normovolemic hemodilution. What? Acute normovolemic hemodilution. Hemoglobin going to reduce and going to infuse fluid in order to maintain the normovolemia. So I am going to make acute normovolemic hemodilution while continuous monitoring of tissue partial pressure of oxygen. Surprising what I found. The highest partial pressure of tissue oxygen level appear at the level of hemoglobin 7 gram per deciliter. Maximum partial pressure of oxygen at the tissue level, that means very closer to 10 millimeter mercury, appear at the level of hemoglobin 7 gram per deciliter or hematocrit. Hematocrit means concentration of the blood. It is roughly 3 times of blood. So roughly about 20%. At the level of 20% hematocrit, though, at the level of 7 gram per deciliter hemoglobin is the value which give rise to highest partial pressure of oxygen concentration on the tissue level. How it happen? You need to have enough hemoglobin in order to deliver the oxygen into the tissue. But when hemoglobin reduces into 7, that is the maximum level of tissue partial pressure of oxygen. When you reduces the amount of hemoglobin, what happens is, it reduces the viscosity of blood. It opens more and more obstructed capillary due to viscosity. So capillary density at the tissue level going to be increased. Because of that, total amount of oxygen delivery into the tissue will increase. We are going to call it as oxygen flux. So oxygen flux going to be increased. After that, when I reduce into 7, what happened? Partial pressure again start to drop. Not 10, it is somewhere around 6, then gradually 2, 3, 1 with the low hemoglobin. That means my threshold of blood transfusion is 7 gram per deciliter in otherwise normal healthy individual. That means only the hemoglobin is low. I am waiting until 7 gram per deciliter before transfusion the hemoglobin, not the hemoglobin blood. Hemoglobin also you can transfuse. Nowadays hemoglobin corpuscle also available, which cleared by your renal system. But we are not going to transfuse that. If you found a patient with hemoglobin less than 7, you can consider blood transfusion. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 7, you can consider blood transfusion if it is dropping. If it is not dropping and otherwise healthy individual, you can wait and see without transfusion of blood. Sometime you can find a patient with hemoglobin level of 8 or 9. With that, patient shows symptoms of anemia. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 7 to 10 with the symptoms of anemia, you may need to transfuse blood. Why? Otherwise your organ is suffering. Which organ suffering? Sometimes it may be brain. Because of low hemoglobin, you may feel vertigo, not delivering enough hemoglobin or oxygen into brain. Sometimes due to low hemoglobin at the level of heart tissue, you may feel myocardial pain, anginal pain due to low oxygen delivery. In that case, you may need to transfuse blood. If you found a symptom like vertigo, exertional dyspnea, ischemic chest pain with ECG changes sometime, you may need to transfuse blood. In patient like those, in patient with such kind of disease, you may have to higher target of hemoglobin rather than waiting 7 gram per deciliter. In patient with ischemic heart disease or cerebral vascular accident or ischemic heart disease or sometimes intermittent claudication with peripheral vascular disease, your hemoglobin target is somewhere around 9-10 gram per deciliter. Otherwise, healthy individual, your hemoglobin target is somewhere around 7 gram per deciliter. You can allow 7 gram per deciliter if there is no trouble. Today I am going to take you how to minimize blood transfusion in perioperative period mainly. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 9 gram per deciliter perioperatively for the elective procedure, within next 2-3 months he is waiting for scoliosis correction, his HB level of 9 gram per deciliter. What I am going to do? Number one, you have to analyze what is the reason for low hemoglobin. There must be a reason. Either iron deficiency anemia, thalassemia, it may be part of sickle cell anemia, it may be part of anemia of chronic disease or sideroblastic anemia. So you have to analyze what is the cause for low hemoglobin level. Then you have to treat your patient in order to improve the hemoglobin level. What are the measures we can take in the perioperative period? You will see. Would you like to see? Yes. So this is your preoperative patient. Preoperative patient, little bit anxious because this guy is having lesser amount of hemoglobin. Number one, what you can do is, if you found patient with low iron in their blood, the causes of 9 gram per deciliter here, causes for 9 gram per deciliter. Here is iron deficiency anemia. You have to start iron treatment. How speed it increase hemoglobin level? Yes, please, anyone. Once you start iron, how speed it increase the hemoglobin level? If you start oral iron, therapy, within 3 weeks, it will increase roughly about 2 gram per deciliter. That means in this patient, if you able to start iron supplement 3 weeks prior to surgery, you can elevate hemoglobin level from 9 to 11. You can elevate hemoglobin from 9 to 11. It is a significant amount. Sometimes if you undergo surgery with 9 gram per deciliter, you may have to transfuse blood. But if you improve hemoglobin level with hemodynamics up to 9 gram per up to 11 gram per deciliter, you may no need to transfuse of blood during the preoperative period. It is a big advancement. So, what are the ways you can increase hemoglobin is either you can start oral iron or intravenous iron, like what ferrous carboxymaltase, one of the frequently used drug. So once you start IV iron, again within 2 weeks, roughly about 2 weeks, you can increase 2 to 3, within 2 to 4 weeks. Within 2 to 4 weeks, you can increase 2 to 4 gram per deciliter hemoglobin. In addition to that, sometime you may have to give vitamin B12, folic acid, which is necessary for red cell production, iron, vitamin B12, folic acid, with you can give one additional thing with these drugs in order to improve the absorption. Sometimes you may have to give vitamin C. Otherwise, your ferrous with the gastric acid can convert into ferric. So not going to absorb. So you are going to give vitamin C with iron. So you can consider vitamin C here. Not only that, if you found a patient with anemia of chronic disease or due to renal failure, you may have to start erythropoietin prior to surgery. Sometime, some trial, but they found with erythropoietin, increase the mortality, increase the incidence of DVT. You have to evaluate that as well. Or you can start erythropoietin here. You can start erythropoietin weekly. Anyone tell what is the function of erythropoietin? Yes, please. Your red blood cells born to die. What? Your red blood cells born to die without erythropoietin. They plan to undergo natural process is called apoptosis. They born to undergo apoptosis. But that period is apoptotic period is prevented by presence of erythropoietin. So if you can give erythropoietin in patient with anemia of chronic disease, mainly renal failure, you can improve hemoglobin concentration prior to surgery. Number 2, if you found a patient, this is number 1, give hematinic. Number 2, correct coagulopathy. What? Correct coagulopathy. If you found a patient with bleeding disorders, you may have to consider the drug for that disease. If you are a patient on anticoagulant, you may have to stop. Correct coagulopathy. Or if you are a patient on anticoagulation, you have to stop. You have to stop anticoagulation. Next one. If you found a patient with hemoglobin level of 14, waiting for scoliosis correction, for that patient, you can take their own blood, and preserve in the blood bank and then give when it is necessary. How it help? If you able to take blood 6 weeks prior to surgery, autologous blood donation, not the donation, blood transfusion. What it does is take patient, if you are patient having enough hemoglobin, good amount of hemoglobin, you can take 1 or 2 pint of blood, 1 pint of blood 6 weeks prior to surgery. 6 weeks prior to surgery and preserve it there, then transfuse during the surgery. During this 6 weeks time, you may have to start hematinic in order to improve the hemoglobin. Within 3 weeks, you can improve 2 grams per deciliter, significant amount within 3 weeks. So, within 6 weeks, during that 6 weeks, you may have to start hematinic. This process is called autologous blood transfusion. You can receive your own blood during the perioperative period. Last one, what you can do here is, during the surgery, what I did surgery experiment here you can do. Acute normovolemic hemodilution you can do. How it helps? Then during the surgery you are going to bleed, but you bled blood with less hemoglobin. The concentrated hemoglobin and blood available while you did the venesection simultaneously. So here you can do acute normovolemic hemodilution. You preserve venesected blood while transfusing the saline. Patient going to bleed, yes, but patient going to bleed larger amount of saline mixed blood which contain low level of hemoglobin. Even though patient bled large amount of blood, you can give venesected blood to your patient and you can save blood. So those are the things you can do during the preoperative period. We will see what are the things we can do during the intraoperative period. So during the intraoperative period, your patient should be in supine position or prone position, whatever the horizontal position. This is your patient now. Now he doesn't know the condition because anesthetized. You have to control. Previously patient was very sad because low HP was there. You have to correct. You know how to correct now. Oral iron, IVI, or stop anticoagulation, correct coagulopathy, acute normovolemic hemodilution. Now you are very competent. So during the intraoperative part, what you can do? If you able to do surgery under spinal anesthesia, if you able to do surgery under spinal anesthesia, try it. It will minimize the bleeding. How is spinal anesthesia or epidural anesthesia or neuroaxial block minimize blood transfusion? Yes, please. Once you give neuroaxial block, what happen? Your arteries and venous going to die. Number one, neuroaxial block. Spinal or epidural. If you able to do this surgery under spinal or epidural, it will help to minimize the blood loss. I will tell how it happen. During the spinal anesthesia or epidural anesthesia, your arterioles and venous both dilate. Because of that, your arteries and venous freely communicated. If you cut here partially, they are not going to bleed too much because the free communication they are from here. Both arteries and veins dilate. So by that way, you're going to reduce the bleeding. Number two, you can consider, not the you, your surgeon should consider skilled surgical technique. Skilled surgical technique. What the meaning of skilled surgical technique? The most experienced surgeon should come with the low level of hemoglobin patient. Most experienced surgeon. Sometimes they have to use Surgicel or tissue glue to prevent the blood loss, to prevent the bleeding. Surgicel means some kind of biological material. Once you keep there, they reduce the bleeding. Tissue glue also same thing. It make a glue here. Most of the time it containing fibrin. It produce clot there and reduces bleeding. Or sometimes you can use ultrasonic cauterizers. Here what you can do is Surgicel, tissue glue or ultrasonic cauterizers you can use. When I am going to use ultrasonic cauterizers? When I am going to do liver resection, it will be a major challenge because large amount of blood going to bleed there. You can't tie in the liver. In that case, you can use ultrasonic cauterizer. With the wave, using ultrasonic wave, they make cauterization there. It will reduce the bleeding. Number 3. Try to maintain normothermia. Why? Hypothermia impaired your coagulative factor function and platelet function. Hypothermia impaired your coagulation function. So your patient can bleed large amount. So you have to maintain normothermia. Number 4. Carbon dioxide level also you have to maintain. Because when you are having higher amount of carbon dioxide, if you feel with high amount of carbon dioxide in yourself without breathing, and you have to check carbon dioxide level, or while breathing into closed chamber, you have to check your own pulse. Your blood pressure going to be up. You are going to bleed more and more. So you have to maintain normothermia. You have to maintain normal amount of carbon dioxide or partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Normocarbia you have to maintain. You have to maintain the position during the surgery. It is one of the very important things. When you are going to do surgery in the head and neck area mainly, cranial surgery, if you have great vessels in the neck kink, it will going to bleed more. The same thing happens in all the part of body. If you are going to do arm surgery, if you kink vein here, venous drainage going to be impaired. So because of that, bleeding will increase. So you have to maintain the proper position. If you are going to do spinal surgery, if your abdominal pressure is too much high, blood will divert into epidural venous plexus. Bleeding will be more. So maintain position is very important. What else? Some surgeries you may have to control the blood pressure. Nowadays they are not going to call as hypotensive anesthesia. Control hypotension you may have to achieve. What? You may have to achieve controlled hypertension in case of head and neck surgery, mainly thyroid surgery. You may have to control the blood pressure. How much of blood pressure you allow to change during the intraoperative period? Just anyone with additional layer of cerebral cortex. How many cerebral cortex you have? Only one cerebral cortex. How many layers in the cerebral cortex? 7. Yes, good. So, anyone with additional layer cerebral cortex, tell me, how are you going to control blood pressure during the perioperative period? How are you going to allow, how much of fluctuation you allow during the perioperative period? If you found a patient with, here I am going to erase, here if you found a patient with blood pressure 130/90, upper margin of blood pressure, you allow 10% up and 20% drop here. In this patient, you allow 10% blood pressure up during the perioperative period. You allow 20% drop during the perioperative period. If you found a patient with 90/60 blood pressure, you do not allow any blood pressure drop. Drop not allowed, but you can give 10% up here. You can allow 10% up here. You do not allow any blood pressure drop here. If you found a patient with in between these two blood pressure, you can allow 10% up and 10% drop. Simply mean you can allow 10% blood pressure up the each and every patient here. If your blood pressure less than 90/60, you do not allow any blood pressure drop. But if your patient is having 130/90, you allow 20% drop. In between two, you can allow 10% drop. Here in this patient, you can allow maximum blood pressure drop in order to prevent bleeding. In order to prevent bleeding, you can allow maximum blood pressure drop here. Number 6. In order to optimize the tissue perfusion, if you are not going to give hemoglobin or blood to your patient, you have to optimize oxygen flux or oxygen delivery into the tissue somehow. In that case, you may have to improve the blood pressure, fluid status, cardiac output. Somehow you may have to stop, you may have to deliver oxygen into the tissue. For that, you may have to improve the blood pressure, may have to improve the cardiac output, you may have to improve the fluid status of your patient. Sometimes, number 7, if you found a patient with large amount of bleeding during surgery, your surgeon can ask you to give, or you can consider of giving tranexamic acid, antifibrinolytic agent. If your patient bleeding more than 500 ml of blood, you can consider tranexamic acid. Tranexamic acid is antifibrinolytic agent. Number 8. Not only antifibrinolytic agent, platelet activating substance also you can give. Platelet activating substance also you can give. What are the platelet activation substance you have? You can consider desmopressin during the surgery or prior to surgery. Desmopressin. One major way of preserving blood is there. Anyone tell during the intraoperative period what you can practice? Yes, very good. Cell salvage. You can consider cell salvage. Number 9. So cell salvage during surgery you can consider. Those are the things you can consider during the intraoperative period. During the intraoperative period, I will repeat one by one. Neuroaxial anesthesia reduces the bleeding. Number one, skilled surgical technique. Older skilled surgeon, no need to be older. Skilled young surgeon also there. Skilled surgeon, surgeon you may have to consider, and tissue glue, and sometimes ultrasonic cauterizer. You have to maintain normothermia. You have to maintain the normocarbia position. You may have to control the blood pressure. Sometimes controlled hypotension you may have to achieve, and the blood pressure and fluid status, cardiac output, in order to prevent tissue hypoxia you may have to control somehow. Sometimes you may have to consider tranexamic acid, and sometimes you may have to consider desmopressin. Last one, you may have to consider in cell salvage in some surgeries. I will tell regarding the cell salvage in the later. Those are the things you can practice during the intraoperative period. Are there anything you can practice during the postoperative period? What is the problem in the postoperative period? If your patient develop high requirement of oxygen during the postoperative period, due to pain or something, your patient can develop even myocardial infarction or cerebrovascular accident, or sometimes disasters can happen. To prevent that, you have to control those things. We'll see what are the things we can practice during the postoperative period. So, postoperative period, your patient is usually in the semi-recombinant position. Initial patient in the upright position. During the surgery, supine position. Here, patient in the semi-recombinant position. Here your patient. What you can practice here is, number one, reduces the requirement. You have to reduce the oxygen requirement. In that case, no need to transfuse blood. Reduce requirement. What are the ways we have to reduce the requirement? Number one, sometimes you may have to paralyze and ventilate your patient. It will reduce the oxygen requirement for breathing. How much of oxygen or how much of ATP you need to have for breathing? Roughly larger amount of oxygen utilized for breathing process. Larger amount of ATP you have to utilize for your breathing process. If you paralyze and ventilate, you can preserve that part. So number one, paralyze and ventilate. Number two, sedation. If you give adequate amount of sedation, you can reduce the oxygen requirement. So painkillers. If you are having high pain during the postoperative period, it will increase your sympathetic activity. It will increase your oxygen demand. If you deliver lesser amount of oxygen due to low hemoglobin, your patient can develop myocardial infarction in that case. So if you give painkiller to your patient, your demand will be minimized. So those are the ways we can practice in order to reduce the requirement. Number two, improve oxygen delivery into tissues. Improve oxygen delivery. To improve the oxygen delivery, you may have to control the blood pressure. Optimal blood pressure. You may have to keep optimal amount of fluid status of your patient. Optimal fluid status. Last one. If there is no contraindication, you can again restart what? Hematinic. You can again restart iron supplementation. Again restart iron. If your patient having coagulation impairment during the postoperative period, again you can correct it. Correct coagulation impairment. So it will reduce the further bleeding. It will reduce the reopening rate of your patient. So those are the things you can practice during the postoperative period. Now you can minimize blood transfusion. Answer is yes. This is all regarding the management of or minimize of perioperative blood transfusion. Thank you very much.